It turned into a pretty nice day today. Kind of surprised. Forecast was for us to get at least 12 inches of snow yesterday and then turn off to 25 degrees, get below freezing again. We were under a winter storm watch for the last few days. But the snow didn't materialize. I think we got about 6-8 inches here about 3 days ago or so, which it got cleaned up. And then when we were supposed to get over a foot, I think we got about 2.5 or 3 inches. He said it was supposed to get a foot, and then it's supposed to turn off to 25 degrees. Well, it didn't do that. It warmed up and started raining, and we got mixed rain and snow. And anyway, the snow that we got turned into kind of a sloppy mess. But the ground is still thawed out, so I still had to use the bucket to clean up the snow with, and which leaves a bit of sloppy, nasty stuff on here. It's melting pretty fast now. It must be 40 degrees out here, it's a little cloudy, but I can see blue sky and stuff around, so it's actually pretty nice. Actually nice enough and warm enough here that in the little bit of running around I've been doing here, I've already worked up a sweat, which is disastrous for an old fart like me. Well, I don't know what the forecast is going to do. It says it's going to get cold again, and actually it says it's supposed to be pretty nice for a few days. It'll be freezing at night and warm in the daytime. We'll see what happens. It'd be nice if this sloppy stuff that's left on the ground after plowing melted off. Anyway, I've got everything done in the basement that I needed to do to get prepped for doing this wing. The only thing left to do is to put the wheels, casters underneath a 12-inch lathe so I can move it when the time comes. Anyway, it's time to start working on this wing now and get it off of here. Now this is pretty straightforward. It attaches 3 places basically. You've got the wing struts there, and each wing strut attaches to the wing with 1 bolt. And then as you go down forward, the wing struts go down to 1 attach point down there on the fuselage, and each strut is attached to that attach point with 1 large bolt. And then there's a jury struts, which help stabilize, I don't know, keep the struts from vibrating too much or something. But they're pretty small, and there's 2 bolts that hold those onto the wings, 4 bolts total, because there's 2 bolts that hold them onto the struts too. And then up in the wing root, there's 1 bolt on the forward spar and 1 bolt on the rear spar. So there's not a heck of a lot in there to take out to get that wing off. But when you get into the wing, there's a little bit more in there. There's 2 fuel tank drains out of the fuel tanks. The fuel tanks are in the wings, 1 in the left wing and 1 in the right wing. And there's 2 fuel drains on there, 1 in the forward part of the fuel tank and 1 in the rear part of the fuel tank. And each one of those has a rubber hose held on with a hose clamp. And then there's a 3rd fuel tank fitting on there that goes from the belly tank up to the wing tank. There's a pump in the belly of the airplane that pumps fuel out of the belly tank into this left wing tank. And so there's a fitting for that. And then there's 2 hoses that go to the fuel gauge. Then there are 3 wires to disconnect. We've got landing light here in the leading edge of the left wing, and there's 2 lights there, a landing light and a taxi light, and each one of those has a 10 gauge wire that has an attach point in the wing root. And then out here on the end of the wing, there's a navigation light. There's a small gauge wire for that. That detaches in the wing root. And then there's 2 antennas in the wing. There's 1 antenna for the GPS and 1 antenna for the Marine VHF radio. There's also the cables that run the ailerons and the flaps. There's a cable that comes through from one wing to the other wing that crosses over at the top of the pilot's head there in the cockpit. It comes out and goes down to the lower aileron here, to that aileron horn right there. Anyway, then there's another cable that goes from the aileron horn on top of the wing and comes out and goes down this 1 wing strut and goes into the belly of the airplane where it attaches to the control yoke in there. And then, of course, there's the flap, and in the wing root there's a flap attachment. So that's probably the first thing I'll do is take the flap and the aileron off. There's small bolts, clevis bolts, that hold the cables on to the control horn on the aileron. The other hinge points on it are just hinged with clevis pins. And then there's another bolt in the flap that controls the flap coming down. So basically it's pretty simple. You just got to get started at it. And I guess the first thing I got to do is, just like anything else, I've got a lot of clutter in here that I've got to move out of the way. Well, anyway, there's a little bit of stuff to move around here. Most of it is all on wheels and easy to move. It's shoved back there to get it out of the way for now, for getting in and out of the hangar. And now I'll have to pull it out a little bit so that I can get back there and take that aileron off. Well, I got those tools moved out of the way. Actually, pretty nice, because I put those away a little over a year ago, and I was worried about them getting rusty and stuff on the surfaces after I'd spent a lot of time cleaning them up. But anyway, I just did a cursory look at those, and so far they're looking pretty good. They're going to need a little cleanup to get the corrosion block grease and stuff off of them, but otherwise they look pretty good. So I guess what I'll do now is, I'm all set up, and I can go ahead and go over there and start taking that aileron off. So the first thing I'm going to do is get up there and take those clevis bolts off for those aileron cables, and then I'll take the clevis pins out. Takes a 3/8" wrench, a flat-headed screwdriver for the clevis bolts, because they're round-headed bolts with just a slot in them on the one end and just a nut on the other end, and then they've got a cotter pin in them. Well, those are pretty easy to get out of there if they're not rusted up, and I've got enough corrosion paralketine and stuff like that on there that they shouldn't be corroded at all. It's been, I think, 5 years since I put those on there, so they shouldn't be in too bad a shape. And the same thing with the pins. The pins are just held on. There's a cotter pin in one end of them with a washer on it, on the pin, and the pins should just slide right out of the hinges there. So I'll go ahead and get that done, and get those that off, and get that aileron off of there. Okay, the screw, or the nut, came right off of there. Screw had a little bit of trouble getting out of there, but that's the way it should be. I could have went ahead and loosened up that turnbuckle a turn or two, and it would have come right out. We'll get the one on the bottom here now. Pull the cotter pin out first. All right, that one's coming right out. Of course, the cable's loose on it, but the nut's coming right off of that one too. So that's good. That's just the way it should be. The cables are loose on that now. To take the cotter pins out of the clevis pins out of the hinge points. All right, that one's going to come right off of there. I'm going to leave it part way in for now. Same thing with that one. Oh yeah, it's sliding right out. Again, I leave it part way in for now. Now I would take this outside one off. The inside one will be still holding it, still balanced. And then I can hold it up. There we go. Now the aileron should come right off. There it is. Just like it was supposed to. Now, taking one of these wings loose can be an easy 2 or 3 man job. They're pretty light, and 2 guys can do them pretty easy. One guy holding the wing up here while the other guy takes it off on the outside. And if you got 3 guys, it's even that much easier, because then you got one guy holding up the inside and one guy on the outside while one guy works on them. But I only have one guy. So what I've done is I've tied ropes around this center beam in the hangar, and I'll get a strap and hook onto that while I'm here. And then I take that strap and wrap around the wing here on this outboard end, hook it onto a rafter up above, the tie rafter up above, and that way I can hold that wing up while I take the inside off. And I can do the same thing on the inside. I have another one here on the inside. I can go ahead and support that wing once I get it completely loose from the fuselage by myself that way. And then I can get ready to take it out of here. We'll have some help to pack it up to the basement. That's my plan. So I got to go find a strap. Now the flap is held on by 2 hinges, and each one of them has a clevis pin in it, but then it also has connection for the cable to actuate the flap, and that one has a bolt in it. So I'll go take that bolt out first. I might need another wrench there. That one has an actual bolt in it and not just a clevis bolt. There's a son of a gun to get to. Can't get my fat fingers in there. Okay, that's out of there. That was a challenge. I left my dikes over there on the ladder, so. Okay. Okay, flaps down. Okay, flaps down. So as I said, I've got another strap right back here. Or another hook off right back here, and I can put another strap on that and bring it around here and hook it up to the rafters to support that wing when I get it off of there. I got my outboard strap strung out there. I have to get a ladder and get up and put it up to the rafter so we can support it there on the outboard end when I get ready to. But the next step is here on the inside of the wing. On the inboard end of the wing. It's called a wing root. And there's a fairing there, wing root fairing, that covers up that gap between the wing and the fuselage. That's held on with a bunch of little PK screws, sheet metal screws, and that goes all the way around. On the top portion of it, it's kind of sandwiched down underneath the fuel tank cover, and down here on the bottom, it's screwed on with a bunch of screws. There's the nose piece right there. And that just goes from just there about in the middle of that triangular window, that front window, up around over to the top, just about into the wing spar. And then there's this piece down here on the bottom above the window, and that's just held on with some screws right there. And then there is the back end, the trailing edge of the wing. And on some airplanes where they've taken and extended the wing, the flaps, and made them longer flaps, they take that piece out and the flap goes all the way there to this edge of the fuselage, but I didn't really see any point in that. So anyway, that piece is held on there with some screws into the inboard rib, and then there's a long screw that comes in from the back, pulls that thing tight. So that's got to come off. That's the next step. Alright, that was off. Okay, now, and this is what's got to come loose. We've got, of course, the cable here for the flap, and here's the bolt for the rear spar attach fitting. And then we got fuel line here. This comes from the pump, the belly tank. And then there should be a fuel line I can't see over there, but there should be another fuel line that comes off down below that. And then up front, you've got fuel lines that go over to the fuel gauge. Another fuel line comes off the bottom of that tank up there, just forward of that. And then there's a forward attach bolt there. That one's got the hoist on it. And then there's wires right down there and stuff that's got to come off for the paraphernalia in the wing. Well, that's what we got to do now is get that stuff cleaned up. Oh, I've probably got to drain the fuel out of there too. There's not much fuel left in there. I've got to drain it all out. Here's what it looks like from this side. You can see there the bolt for the front spar. That's all that holds it on. It's just that one bolt right there, one in the back. And we got the fuel line coming out right there, and those wires right there for the landing light and the navigation light. And we got tubes there for the pitot-static system. There's a fuel line for the front, and then they have one for the lower fuel gauge, and then back there is the rear fuel port. Well, that's it. And here is the two bolts for the struts, bottom bolts where they attach the fuselage. They look like crap, but that's what's there is crap. It's all peralkatone filled in there to keep it from rusting up. Got the jury struts here. They're just attached with AN3 bolts. And then up here they attach to the wing. And then out there we go. This bolt here attaches the front spar, and there's another one back there on the rear spar. And that's all that holds the wing on. So I'm going to go ahead and get a gas can, see how much more of that fuel I can drain out of there. Well, I get started working on this airplane again. Today it finally warmed up enough where I can work out here with my hands bare. I don't know about anybody else, but when it comes to working in these tight spots, in these small areas, I can't work with gloves on. I've got to work with my bare hands. It froze pretty hard last night and stayed cold for quite a while. It was a little too chilly out here to work with my bare hands, so I fooled around doing some other things until now. It's warmed up enough in here now that I can get some work done, hopefully. Well, yesterday we got out here after plowing snow and fooling around outside. Come out here and started working on this thing. I got the aileron off and the flap off on this side, and I took the wing root covers off, and then I drained the fuel. So I just drained it out of the front tank, or out of the front drain that's down there on the firewall. Fuel flows, gravity flows out of the wing and then down through the side of the fuselage into a fuel selector valve. So that drains the usable fuel out of the tank. There's still unusable fuel in the tank, and we have a drain in the tank here on the lower end of the tank on the inboard section, right about there, that we can finish draining most of it out of. That has a drain in it that you can just push up. It's spring loaded. You push up and it opens up the drain, and you can drain the fuel out of there, and that gets most of it out. It doesn't get it all out. And that's one of the things to do for pre-flight is to check that. Have a little cup that I stick up in there to drain fuel out of that, and if we get water or debris or anything out of it, we keep draining it until we get it clean. So that's what I'm going to do now. I've got another can, and I got a piece of welding wire that I bent up so I can stick up in there, and then I got a double bend in it so I don't get my hand down where the fuel's draining out there, and then I've got a bucket I can hold underneath it. It shouldn't be a heck of a lot in that tank, but that's what I'm going to do now is drain that tank, the rest of the fuel out of it. So that should get the fuel level down below the outlet of the tanks where it drains down into the fuselage of the airplane. So now when I take those fuel lines off there, I shouldn't get any fuel. There's still probably a little bit of fuel left in that tank, but I shouldn't get any fuel coming out of those hoses on there when I take them off. Well, that frees me up to start disassembling the stuff off that wing root now, taking those wires off that go on there. I'm going to have to take that cover off the fuel tank off the top of the wing to take the connectors off for the antennas, and then disconnect those fuel lines and the wires going out there, and then that thing will be free at the wing root, and take those bolts out of there. Well, we should be able to get that done here pretty soon. I hooked a strap up on this outboard end of the wing to hold it up, and before I take those other bolts out of the wing root there off the spars, I'll go ahead and put another strap there on that inboard side to hold that up. So before I get started on that, I'm going to do a little bit of a rant. I had a complaint from a fellow the other day about the audio quality on my recordings. And what's going on is when I'm close to the camera like this, then you get pretty good audio on it. But as I start wandering around out in front of the camera and away from it, if I'm not facing the camera and hollering, then you're not going to get any audio out of me. And then this camera has been just messing up with the focus, and again, when I'm out in front of the camera and stuff, doing stuff, I can't tell when it's focused or not. And my eyes are such anymore that unless I'm standing here with my glasses on, even then with this little screen on here, I can't tell if it's focused the way it's supposed to be or not. And a doggone thing, it'll focus and then it'll change focal points on it. And anyway, it's been kind of frustrating. So I bought a cheap camera to use to see if that one would work any better, or you know, get a different angle and stuff on there as far as the focus on it. I don't know whether it has automatic focus on it or not, but it doesn't have any way to manually focus it. It is a cheap camera. It was cheap. It was less than $100. I forget exactly what, but and you can tell it's cheap. I tried to mount it on a tripod yesterday to use it for the first time, and as soon as I mounted it to the tripod and tried to set it up, the bottom of the camera busted out. It's sitting on the tail of the airplane right now. And then I knew the audio quality wasn't as good as I would like, so I got a, what do they call it, a lavalier mic, and I just downloaded some video that I took a couple days ago up in the basement, looked at it on the computer and listened to it, and the audio quality on that is just crap. As far as I'm concerned, it picks up all the ambient noise around. It's not directional or anything else, and there's no way to adjust the gain on the mic to reduce the amount of ambient noise around that it picks up. And then the audio voice on it is not very good, as far, in my opinion. Now, it wasn't a very expensive lavalier mic, and I've got an old one here that I got several years ago that I tried using on another camera, and I know it didn't work much better either, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of money on this kind of stuff. I haven't made any money on any of these videos. I think I just got a statement from YouTube for 2023, and I think I made $104 or something like that. So that's not enough to get too invested in this at all. And I didn't get into this to make money at it anyway. I started recording videos for my brother so that he could see what I was doing up here. He was kind of landlocked and locked in his house and couldn't get out and couldn't get around and stuff, and he wanted to know what was going on up here and what I was doing and stuff. So I started recording videos for him, and then I put a couple videos up on working on something that I couldn't find directions on, that I finally figured out how to use. And there was a lot of people looked at that and were able to figure out how to use that thing on their own, and they appreciated that. But otherwise, I just put them up for my brother, and then I was going to quit when my brother passed away, and my family talked me into keeping recording. So I've been doing it for my family, and I've made some friends around the world that I'll never meet in person. I've got some people in Brazil and South America. My daughter-in-law's brother is in Peru, and he watches my videos. He's an engineer, and he does some fantastic stuff of his own. I haven't seen any of his videos, but we talked about it on the phone when we were down in Florida last year. Had to have my daughter-in-law translate for us because I don't speak Spanish and he doesn't speak English. But anyway, we got along pretty well. I've got a couple of friends in Poland, friends in China, and some other places in the world. Like I said, there are people I've never met and never will meet, but I consider them friends, as well as people in the States here and in Alaska. So those people enjoy what I'm doing, that's fine. If they have positive feedback to make, that's fine. I'll take positive feedback, but if people get too critical, it doesn't bother me a bit. I don't pay any attention to it because, like I said, I'm not in it for my own ego or for the money. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of money on any of this stuff, but I'll keep doing it as long as I only have, well, I think the most videos that I've ever, watches that I have on any videos are of videos that I put on about 7 years ago when we had our puppies. And those are still getting quite a few. I think that's where most of the money and the revenue comes from that I get is still from those videos. So I always figured if you wanted to make money making videos, you'd make kitten videos, cat videos, puppy videos, dog videos, and videos of guys getting hit in the nuts. Those seem to be the most popular ones in that order. Anyway, I just keep plugging away on what I'm doing, and if you don't like it, don't watch, and if you do, if you feel like it, give me a thumbs up and a comment once in a while on the comment section, and I appreciate it. I enjoy everybody that comments, or most of them that comment. The one I don't enjoy, I don't pay any attention to. So anyway, that's my rant. Now I'm going to get back to working on the plane, and now I got to get up in there, and let's see, what am I going to do first? I need a hose, a wrench for the hose clamps on there to take those hoses off, and probably a screwdriver to help slide those off the barbs. May have to get them off of there once I get the wing loose and pulled away from the fuselage a little bit. And then I have to get that fuel tank cover off of there and unhook those cables for the antennas on the fuel tank cover. Because you got to have a ground plane for your antennas. And since this is a fabric airplane, there's not much for a ground plane except for the metal cover over those fuel tanks. And then I got the cables that come out on the wing there for the landing lights and the navigation light. And the hoses for the pitot tubes, the pitot-static system. Anyway, here we go. Let's get busy at that. I might go ahead and put this lavalier mic in there and this camera just so you can hear me. I swear under my breath once in a while. And I'm going to go ahead and try this old one that I've had for years. I don't think it works any better than the other one did, but I'll give it a try anyway. Oh, there, it's plugged in. We'll see how that works. I'm getting audio signal on the viewfinder screen, so it must be working. Alright. Oh, those are too small. My nut driver, the usual nut driver size for hose clamps, is too big. These are all small hose clamps, and they take like a 1/4 inch nut driver instead of this, what is this one, 5/16? Yeah, 5/16, which is a normal size nut driver. Okay. Well, shoot, I thought those were spade connectors or slip-on connectors, but they're not. They're okay, so that means they got to get cut. What did I do with my dikes here down there? Okay, those are loose. Now we've got the carry-through cable to take loose and the fuel line back there in the back. Oh yeah, still got this flap cable to take out too. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Well, I can cut this hose and put a new one on. That's not that big of a deal. I can put new hoses on there. That's probably what I should do anyway. Just go ahead and cut those hoses and put new ones on. Okay, that settles that. Oh well, I just cut the goddamn hose. I had a broken nipple on one of the fuel tanks. I think there were other one on the other side. When I had this plane apart before, I had to weld it back on. A crack in it. It broke off, I guess. Anyway, there's no point in putting any excess pressure on these and breaking those fittings. So this is a pain to get into. A little teeny hole there. And it's got a nut. The bolt is up on top. It's dark in there. Come on, stay on there. Now this is a son of a gun getting this bolt in here and getting this turnbuckle in, but it's even worse getting up in there to safety wire that turnbuckle. That's done. All right, now I got to get into the cabin there and undo that cable connector so that aileron cable can come out of there. Get the rag and wipe my fingers off first. And when I put the new fuselage on here, it's 4 inches wider than the original Cub fuselage. Tab right here that I'm working on now, they sell a longer one to make up for the difference in the width of the cockpit. But what I did is I used the original one and then I just made up new cables to fit. I got it all disconnected here in the wing root now, so all I've got left to do is take these bolts out of take the ones out of the jury struts and then take the struts off. That's why I put that strap on there to hold the wing up. Then I got 2 bolts in the wing root in the spars that attach the fuselage, and it's ready to come off. So just about got it. Got that wing root all unattached from the wing, the hoses and the wires and stuff like that, ready to come loose. And Judy called me in for dinner. Went into dinner and watched TV with her a little bit. Well, I couldn't rest, couldn't sleep, so I went ahead and come out here and worked on this some more. I took the bolts out of the wing struts. I just got done taking the 2 bolts out of the wing root there where they attach to the spars. I'd put the strap on the outboard end a little bit earlier, but just as I was getting done ready to take the bolts out of the inboard end here, out of the fuselage itself, I went ahead and hooked the strap up there and tightened it up so I could take the pressure off of it. I took the bolts out of the wing roots and slid in some drift pins to hold the wing up while I got the bolts out. And then once I got the bolts out and the wing supported, I went up and went ahead and took those drift pins out of there. So the wing is all disattached from the fuselage. Struts are loose. All I have to do is raise the wing up a little bit on the outboard end and I can drop those struts out of there. Okay, that strut loose. Set right there. I just had a drift pin in there. Alright, that's off of there. That's a tie down ring. And there's the strut. So I gotta wait till tomorrow and get some help. Get that wing down and open this barn door here, the hangar door, and then I get that wing down and take it up to the basement, and I've got to move all that stuff out of the basement into here, into the hangar. All that stuff I've been working on for the last few months, getting it ready. So we got some cleanup work to do in here to get everything ready to go in here. And then we can get that wing up to the house and start working on it. Good deal. Wing is free. Free at last.